A very good morning and many thanks for joining us on yet another edition of Political Spectrum. We're coming to you live on Spectrum Television. I am Raymond Ita. The countdown to the election continues with 3 days to go before Nigerians head to the polls to cast their ballots for who would be the president of the country from May 29 later this year and would run the course of the National Assembly. The build-up to the elections have been gathering momentum, and the last few weeks and days, of course, we've been trying to ascertain the voters would decide the fate of the country by virtue of the votes they cast at the ballots come election days. Well, as usual, we tend to start off with the day's bigger story before we delve into more pressing concerns Nigeria is facing as a country. These are the matters arising, of course, in the lead up to the polls. And we'll be joined by the Kwabam State Coordinator, Center for Human Rights Advocacy, and of the day's biggest news, political news stories and events. And we begin with the news that the Commonwealth observed the measurement of the general elections in the country. Now, the leader of the mission and former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, yesterday met with INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu, along with some national commissioners in Abuja. Now, the delegation is in Nigeria as one of those foreign observer groups who will monitor the February 25 presidential and National Assembly polls in the country, with the latest being the 7th election that the mission would be observing in an important country for the Commonwealth, and equally expressed hope that the elections will be peaceful, credible, and all-inclusive. He also stated that the meeting will afford the delegation an opportunity to hear from the electoral umpire and preparations thus well. On his part, Professor Yakubu stressed the importance that INEC attaches to the observations of the Commonwealth Observer Mission in the past, noting that some of the recommendations have led to improvements, including the further deployment of technologies by the Commission today. By 18 political parties in 176,974 polling units for the 2023 general elections. But this was announced on the verified Twitter handle of the Commission yesterday. The statistics of agents from the prominent parties show the Labour Party has 134,176,974 agents, and the APC with 176,974 agents as well, while the other 14 political parties have a total of 1,081,358 agents combined. Availability of petrol in the country ahead of the 2023 elections, saying it has 1.805 billion litres of the product in stock. Now, the company shared the information via its official Twitter account, citing fuel supply data from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Now, the data shows 57.81 million litres as the average daily evacuation for the week. Now, the oil giant which stated the volume of petrol in stock would last for 30 days. The NNPCL explained that 805.35 in its concerted efforts to sustain the supply of petroleum products nationwide. The NNPC Limited has in place a robust plan for the supply of premium motor spirits from mid-February to March 2023. Well, let's head to Rivers' commendable stance on zoning the presidency to the south. Now, the governor described the insinuations that he would defect PDP. Governor Wike stated this at the 114th quarterly general meeting of the Rivers State Council for only a candidate who would guarantee the unity of the country. Wike insisted that he is not a member of the APC, the South. Now, speaking on the crisis in the PDP, the governor said Rivers State has helped to sustain the PDP right from the entry to deny other people the opportunity to participate in presiding over the affairs of the nation. Staying with the PDP, the presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, has accused governors of the All Progressives Congress. In a statement by Special Assistant on Public Communications, Frank Shaibu, the PDP candidate sympathized with Nigerians over the hardship they faced over the naira scarcity. Shaibu emboldened rioters to burn down commercial banks. He said Ogun State Governor Dapper Biodun, who had threatened to revoke the certificates of occupancy of banks rejecting the old notes, was acting like a dictator, and this has evoked rebellious actions across the sea, saying he will not gain any political advantage from the current Naira swap crisis. Tinubu, in a statement on the Naira swap policy, shows he's anti-people. And he said in line with what he called Atiku's well-documented inconsistencies and unreliability, the PDP presidential candidate has advanced several contradictory positions in what he said was a fruitless hope of gaining political advantage from the crisis. Chief of Defense Staff General Lucky Rabo yesterday assured Nigerians that the armed forces and other security agencies are ready to provide a safe and secure environment for the February 25 and March 11 elections. Rabo gave the assurance while briefing newsmen shortly after a meeting with the service chiefs as well as the heads of security agencies in Abuja. He also warned those who intend to cause trouble during the elections to have a Army, Navy, as well as the Air Force and the Inspector General of Police, the Directors Generals of the Department of State Services and the National Intelligence Agency, as well as the Chief of Defense Intelligence. He said the purpose of the meeting was to review the election security and develop action plans to ensure that the elections are held under a peaceful atmosphere. Iraba also gave assurance that security exercise their franchise, and he further said contingency actions have been taken to address the areas with peculiar security challenges. Let's wrap up our updates with the news that the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF, have said the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi's endorsement by the group remains sacrosanct. PANDEF spokesman Ken Robinson stated this in a statement issued yesterday. The statement said the attention of PANDEF was drawn to certain comments in the media regarding the forum's endorsement of Obi, credited to a purported youth wing of the forum. PANDEF urged the public to disregard the reported rejection of Obi's endorsement by the so-called youth. They said it was born out of an infantile musings, noting that in the first place, PANDEF doesn't have any wings. The forum also leader of PANDEF, and elder statesman Edwin Clark, had endorsed Mr. Obi for the presidency, which was affirmed by the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum on February 2nd. Those are the updates to make do with, but stay with us. Still to come on Political Spectrum. Should the elections go ahead in the face of the challenges Nigerians are grappling with barely 4 days to go before Nigerians head out to the polls? Franklin Isong, Akwa Ibom State Coordinator of CRAN, will be joining us after this time out on the Burning Stories segment. The bearer's thoughts on this issue. We'll likely get your reactions as well in the due part of the show. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will return.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one institution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll...
Legally Speaking. Join us every Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Legally Speaking.
Every day.
Nigeria. I remain committed.
insecurity. Education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transform the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. And don't forget, you can always connect with us on StarTimes DTH Channel 421. And don't forget to always subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to all our social media platforms for the conduct of the first of the two general elections slated for this year. February 25, make that this Saturday. Nigerians will head out to the polls to cast their votes to elect a new president, as well as members who would form the chambers. Both the upper and lower have been largely dominated and characterized by unprecedented events, a bulk of which surrounds the cash crunch that has been necessitated. Well, joining us live and over the line to talk us through these issues as to whether or not the elections can go ahead as scheduled in the face of this crunch. Well, the state coordinator of CRAN, that's the Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network here in Akwa Ibom State, Atwekom Franklin Isong, joins us live on Political Spectrum. Good morning to you, and many thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Raymond, Ita, and good to be here with you today.
Thank you very much for joining us as well. I'd like to start by asking, because as it is, Nigerians are still bearing the brunt of the Naira redesign policy and the scarcity that followed both the old and the new notes, a policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And quite interestingly, we're still having pockets away. Before we go into the matter of the day, I'd like to start by asking, we've heard reports that money is finally flowed in several states across the country. You are somewhere in the state's capital. I want things that Nigerians have suffered in the past few days is slightly going away.
Well, I want to say that I have not seen money flooding the banking offices or the banking sector in Akwa Ibom State. I have not seen. As at yesterday, I had to go to one bank after the other to also, see the crowd of people and gather more information as to what is happening with regards to the Supreme Court order concurrently pending the hearing of the matter and determination by tomorrow, Wednesday. And all I could see from the bank is the old 200 Naira notes. I did not see the redesigned 1,000 Naira, the redesigned 500 Naira, and the redesigned 200 Naira. All I saw in the bank that I visited yesterday was the old 200 Naira note. And I can say I went to Zenith Bank. I did not see the redesigned 1,000 Naira note, 500 Naira note, and 200 Naira note. What I saw was 200 Naira, the old, now recycled 200 Naira note, which the president, in violation, and even at that, the currency was dirty. They were torn dirty and look so. In fact, it looks like they picked it from the garbage, and some of which were eaten by, looks like they were eaten by rodents and ants. Just pick them out, and you can barely touch it. So this is what some banks were issuing out to their customers, and they were paying as low as 5,000 Naira. Some were paying 2,000 Naira. Some were paying 3,000 Naira. The highest that a bank within which in Uyo was paying was 10,000 Naira. And I find out that most of these banks, or what I've gathered from the bankers, was that more branches in Akwa Ibom are given the same amount of money as to the ones that had or has few branches. So if for 5-6 branches is given the same amount of 30,000, the bank has to share the money into the 6 branches. The one that has 2 branches will share some. The bank that has higher customers than the others, you just share the money as flat rate. That is why you see in some banks you will see queues, and you will see more crowd than the other banks. And that is why also some banks were paying 2,000, and then some were paying 3,000, some were paying 5,000, some were paying 10,000, depending on the volume of customers that they have. So this is what I experienced yesterday. This is a true picture of what happened yesterday. Today I also intend to go out again to also be able to gather information, because my duty is to ensure that I see how the policy of the central bank, how it's working, whether it is working or is failing. And from what I have experienced, what I have seen, I don't see it working. I rather see it imposing more hardship on Nigerians. I see it imposing more difficulty and stressing Nigerians beyond limit.
Interesting. Well, from the analogy that you've just with the Supreme Court's directive that ruled that the old and the new notes can run concurrently pending the determination of the hearing that's been slated for tomorrow. In your own words, Mr. President disrespected the Supreme Court judgment. Is your position on this likely to change in the face of the fact that nothing has seemingly been done, with Mr. President clearly having his way with this policy, regardless of the Supreme Court's ruling in place?
My position has not to change. We take side with the law. We stand by our constitution because we are operating a constitutional government, because we are operating a democracy guided by rules and laws, because we are operating based on the principle, Mr. President. Because if a president cannot obey the Supreme Court orders, it will be setting a very wrong precedent. It will make the judiciary, it will make rubbish of the judiciary, and that will not speak well of our democracy. And the president has just 3 months at most to stay in office. And if in less than 3 months he has in office, he commits a fundamental flaws like breaching the rule of our constitution and by breaching the order of the Supreme Court, he will be setting a very wrong precedent where you will have a president come on board and violate the rules of our constitution and violate the rules Supreme Court order was disobeyed, and nothing happened.
Oh, quite interesting you've said so. It leads us now to more pressing concerns. The elections, of course, are coming up this weekend. And there's been different views and divergent opinions as to Naira redesign policy. Let's start from the position of INEC. We are told today they would be meeting with the Central Bank of Nigeria to iron out logistical concerns so funds can be provided for the electoral body to take care of its needs on election day where physical cash is required. Assurances have come from. Do you feel that the lack of money could hinder the turnout of voters on election day and possibly leading to widespread voter apathy?
Let me take the last statement you just made. I am tempted to believe that the scarcity of funds, the intendment of those who had made this policy is to truncate a smooth democratic having such a policy where Nigerians are made to stay at home. What you see today is like the government telling you to stay at home. You don't have the cash to go out. You cannot go to, there is no fear. These are twin crises that hamper movement. The cash tip on Nigerians must have thought of how to truncate our democracy, and they now came up with these policies in order to ensure that I'm acceptable to Nigerians. That is what I am tempted to believe, and I want to urge Nigerians to, in the midst of this hardship, still go out there to cast their vote, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And so my appeal to Nigerians who are passing through this difficulty, who are passing through this hardship, is to seize the opportunity of the election, which is just 4 days from today, to go out there, who are pan-Nigerians, people who believe in the progress of Nigeria, people who believe in the rule of law, people who believe in the fundamentals of our constitution, back to office.
Quite disturbingly, in the lead up to President Buhari's nationwide broadcast, we had all had expectations that the Supreme Court would, deliver some sort of change in the Naira redesign policy, until, of course, the matter was adjourned till tomorrow, Wednesday, February 22nd. What are your expectations in the light of the presidency or the executive arm of government, this regarding the Supreme Court ruling? Do you have high expectations that whatever comes out of tomorrow's sitting at the Supreme Court would not lead to respecting the rule of law and complying with whatever directive the Supreme Court gives, considering he's already disregarded the first one? So who's to say that he will comply with whatever judgment comes out from tomorrow's sitting?
Let me, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was an interlocutory order that the determination of the matter in court. And when the court, sat on the 15th, and other parties came up with fresh motions, fresh application to be joiners, you have matters, and then, now adjourn the matter to the 22nd, which is tomorrow. The Supreme Court also says, and after which, by a fusion of time, the order has no in the previous hearing to the 22nd, and so the president disobeyed twice the order of the Supreme Court. The first time it was ordered, and then now that it has also been extended, so you can say that the president has disobeyed the Supreme Court order twice. And so, in the first, if the president of the country, who is supposed to give effect, who is supposed to obey and ensure that the laws of the Supreme Court, are obeyed and enforced across the country, can be the one to stand on the head of the law and disobey the orders of the Supreme Court. For tomorrow, I foresee a frustrated Supreme Court not being able to issue out orders that will be obeyed, because if the order that the court gave, which was for a temporary relief that let this currency coexist, is disobeyed by the president himself, and the president came out with a broadcast from the outcome of the court, that the president coming out in a broadcast telling the country, telling the world that I am aware of certain pronouncements of some courts of the land, but haven't been aware of this, and he went ahead to make pronouncements such as that, out of the order made by the Supreme Court, I choose to obey the part that will bring in only 200 naira notes. This for me shows with orders that may not also be obeyed. And you have barely 3 days to election. By tomorrow, you have just 3 days to election, and so the Supreme Court will just say, well, since this is more of a political tool than law and logic, let's just allow it to be. That's what I see, because from what I deduced from Mr. President's broadcast was that, this particular policy is meant to checkmate vote buying. That is what the president keeps hammering, and to checkmate corruption, to checkmate those who have touched money, billions in their houses to buy vote. We just say, okay, since it is all about politics, it's all about it's all about the outcome of tomorrow of the Saturday's election. Let's just allow it to be. After all, Nigerians have passed through a lot. It's just about 3 days to go. So my take is that Supreme Court justices will be seen as handicap the central bank governor to prison for contempt of court. And let me even add this: you don't need the Supreme Court to carry arms. You don't need the Supreme Court to carry weapons to whip the president and the CBN governor. You need, in a civilized society, in a civilized climate, in an advanced democracy, by the president's action, the National Assembly would have, reconvened and commence impeachment process of the president, because a breach of our constitution is an impeachable offense.
Well, now,
For me, it's an impeachable offense. And what would have been done would have been for the National Assembly to reconvene and begin to consider this impeachment process and then see how we can go through with that.
Interesting. Well, now that you've mentioned it, that the National Assembly should have reconvened from its current recess to address the impasse occasioned by President Buhari's new directive and his decision not to comply with the Supreme Court ruling this week, said he was quite disappointed that Mr. President did not comply with the Supreme Court ruling. However, he said the decision to recirculate 3 steps allowed for a recall of the old notes to still be in circulation. One of which he said was that they would have to seek the president's approval. And when he talked about mentioning or allowing or seeking for the president's approval before the new notes, or the old notes rather, could be residency. This may not be your forte as a constitutional or a legal matter, but I'd like to share or get your thoughts on this. Whether you feel the 1999 Constitution has abrogated way too much power to Mr. President, so much so that this example could be a bad precedent for incoming president.
I will agree with the House of Rep Speaker on the one side of his position. I will disagree with him on the other side of his position. The side I would seem to agree with him is that the tender. Now, the Supreme Court of the land is the apex court of the land. After the Supreme Court, if you made a pronouncement, you can only appeal to God Almighty. And so you are bound to obey whatever the Supreme Court says. And in legal studies, if you're a student of law, you will be taught that the law is what the court says it is. Now, the president may have made a pronouncement invalidating or saying that the 200 note, 500 note, 1,000 note are illegal tender, that its legality to put aside that pronouncement. This is the court of the land saying these currencies should still be valid, should still be in circulation, pending until when this matter that is before me is resolved. And so, to that extent, I disagree with due respect to the speaker about before the 200 note will be brought to the circulation. It is not right, because the Supreme Court had already put aside the deadline that was set by the central bank, which was on the 10th of February. So by that Supreme Court pronouncement that the currency should be allowed to circulate, it has already put aside what the presidency, what the CBN said about the date that they says it is. That's one. Now, on the other question that you put across to me, the question of the president having too much power. Of course, I have oftentimes said it, over 63 items in the Constitution to the executive, to the federal government of Nigeria, and you allow only few items to the state and local government. And so that is why because you don't have a country where you have power, you have natural resources, you have waterways, you have aviation, you have telecom, you have security, you have the federal highways. Men will sit and then make power and then decide how they are, how they function, and which is why you have difficulty in policing our country, for instance, because you have a president who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. You don't have the state having state police. You don't you have a state governor that will tell the CP of the state or the commander of a state or the DSS officer or DSS boss and say, this is what I think we should do. Even when they have a security meeting in the state, they will still have to recourse to what the president wants them to do. A governor, because you see the governor of River State in Utomi Amechi, not having the protection that he ought to have as a governor. You could have, the CP of a state working against a sitting governor, mobilizing against a sitting governor, and nothing happened. So we said then that we had two governors. We have two governors in River State, where you have the CP and the governor of the state. Even when the governors are called chief security officer of their state, they still need to rely on the federal security agencies to be able to police their state. Foreign affairs, president is handling several issues, internal issues, and the rest. And he is the minister of petroleum, and he is the minister of this and minister of that. How then can a country operate How then can we have a better government? So our position has, we, the people of Nigeria, came together and start. We never sat together to agree that the constitution should be functional, should be operational. But because we were in a haste to get the military out of government, military came up with decreeing a constitution into existence. The current constitution, there have been attempts to review the constitution, but it keeps failing. It keeps failing because of political interest. It keeps failing because it comes at the wrong time. Now we are talking about the issue of local government and local government autonomy. You don't have it. You see how the state government controlling it. So you have these issues. That is why the only way out, you could even have an angel as a president. But if you don't have a better constitution, a better law, I tell you that the president becomes super president and acts arbitrarily take to impeach him. Why is it difficult for the senators, for the reps to come out and begin to initiate moves to impeach him? Why is it difficult? It is because of party politics. The party will tell you that their supporters, their members who are in the National Assembly will be able to bite. So that is where we are finding ourselves. So back to your question, I think and I believe that we need to, you will have a better Nigeria.
Well, it appears that the narrow redesign policy, as to an already mentioned, some political parties are feigning that this policy is largely targeted at truncating their chances at the polls. We've seen the APC, including its presidential flag bearer, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, openly coming out to say that some alleged fifth columnists are working with some perceived moles within the APC to wrongly misadvise the president on this policy to truncate his chances of emerging victorious at the polls. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, on the other hand, seemed to have favored this policy initially, but it seemed to have had a rethink. Just yesterday, he issued a statement to question the rationale behind the policy, because he now said the hardship on Nigerians was way too much. Can you vouch for Mr. President's neutrality as far as the narrow redesign policy is concerned and its major target of, in the president's own words, deterring?
First, Mr. President is a party man. Mr. President belongs to the All Progressive Congress. Mr. President is the ambassador and the chief marketer of the APC candidate. And so the policy of the APC government, the achievement of the APC government under Mr. President will be used as the basis to rate the performance of the APC government. And so, because we are operating a political party democracy, because we are operating a political system where you have the president voting as a party man, the president can never be neutral in the forthcoming election, because he is a party man and his party, he must ensure that his party wins. During the presidential broadcast, I saluted Mr. President that he did not mention his party candidate. He only said Nigerians should go out there and vote the best person for the position. That he was only paying lip service to Nigerians. But after which the president came out again with a broadcast, which is still in a rally. President has been attending a rally with his candidate. President has even made a broadcast where he said the candidate should be supported. And so, how then can we say?
He has equally urged Nigerians at several forums to vote for any candidate or political parties of their choice. Well, the onus is about his much cherished legacy of conducting free, fair and credible polls. He has said Nigerians can vote for whichever candidate or party that they want. Isn't that enough to vouch for his neutrality?
You see, I risk saying that Mr. President is speaking from both sides of his mouth, because when he says that Nigerians should vote for the president, the candidate of their choice, in the other hand, he goes out and campaigns for a particular candidate. He endorsed a candidate. He goes to a particular party rally. He speaks in support of his candidate, and then in the other hand, he will say, vote for the candidate of your choice. So one is not in contempt in that role, and say that should do. You should not be, because he is, like I said, he is an active leader of working against his success. He will come out and say, I am supporting you. But his policies and programs, are they, because these are what will be used as the basis to rate the performance of the APC government. Don't forget that I've told you before that it is the party logos that are going to be placed on the ballot papers. The will see party logo is the APC logo, which Mr. President is the party. The president is running the party's government. So here we are going to use the party's successes and achievements to rate the president, to rate how Nigerians will vote. So the president being neutral.
Sir Franklin, because when we come back from this very short break that beckons, the Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, CRAN, has equally beckoned on the Akwa Ibom state government to distribute palliatives to residents and citizens of the state in the face of the biting hardship occasioned by of our discussion. When we come back from this break, Political Spectrum will return. Please stay with us.
Basically, what we have done today is to go through two activities. The first one is the training of the second batch of ad hoc staff for the election. Last week, we trained the supervisory presiding officers nationwide, and today, we started yesterday, today some presiding officers 1, 2, and 3. As you know, we have our own role clearly cut out, and others also have their own roles clearly cut out. But the most important thing is to hold peacefully nationwide. Basically, what we have done.
Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum with me, Raymond Aitan. It's live on Spectrum Television. A reminder of our major story this morning. Should the elections go ahead in the face of the biting hardship occasioned on Nigerians, but the narrow redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which has drawn up diverse reactions and different positions as to whether or not the policy was necessary. INEC should consider postponing the polls until this impasse has been addressed, while others have said it is not needed. To Twickham Franklin Isong, who is the state coordinator, Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, CRAN, here in Akwa Ibom State. Well, it's still with us right here as we delve into the second part. So you would argue has felt a brunt of the biting effect of the narrow redesign policy, so much so that comparisons have been made with the COVID-19 pandemic and what residents and citizens in the state had to go through when we had a lockdown affected nationwide, like it was basically done of palliatives to residents in the state to cushion the effect of this policy and the hardship that people from the Akwa Ibom state government to that effect.
First, I want to commend the government of Akwa Ibom State, particularly the governor, for you could see that there is peace in the state. There is peace. The people are enjoying the state is not comparable to what we used to have in the state, and this is because of the disposition of the governor of the state. I want to say that the crisis that we are facing today is biting hard, and the Crown believe that the government can come to the aid of the people, the vulnerable, particularly. Yesterday, when I was going around the banks to do to survey activities in the bank premises, I saw the aged ones, I saw the vulnerables, I saw the people that are in need. I saw the people that are in need. I saw the vulnerables. I saw the vulnerables. I saw the aged ones. I saw the vulnerables. 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 I people that should be in the hospital, coming to lie down at the premises of the bank just because they need to get maybe 2,000 naira to come into the aid of given medical attention, because I can tell you that the situation is very worrisome in the hinterland. Now, this is the urban. You may not have such difficulty because people still have one way or the other to go about. But in the hinterland, in the rural communities, in the fishing port and the farm communities, I tell you, it is more difficult than what you think. So the Center for Human Rights think that in line with Section 14 of our Constitution, which has placed the welfare and security of citizens of the states and of the country in the hands of the governors and in the hands of the government, that it made it the primary purpose of government that there is need for us to invite the government of Akwa Ibom State to give out palliative to the vulnerable and also medical attention to the ones, to the sick, and to the ones who need medical attention, because people are actually dying in silence. I commend the youth of Akwa Ibom State for not taking the law into their hands, for not going on rampage, destroying properties and touching people's facilities and even banks. So I think that if the government come to the aid of the people and give out palliative, it will go a long way to ameliorate the suffering that we are passing through.
Well,
now, having said this,
okay,
like I said before, okay.
Yes, I don't know if your appeal is coming a little too late, because as of Friday last week, we were inundated with confirmed reports that some youths set ablaze 3 commercial banks in Oron local government area precisely. The state police PRO, Diko McDon, confirmed the arrest of 15 persons to that effect. So, in other words, it looks like the biting effect of this policy has already taken its toll on the people of the ante by being proactive to ensure such incidents do not repeat itself again.
Yeah, the appeal is not late because we are still in the difficulty. The Naira notes are not available to Nigerians. You don't have fear. For the past 1 year, we've been struggling with the fuel scarcity, and so these two. So our appeal is not late. If the unfortunate incident that happened in Oron local government, of course, is just one of such reactions of the youth. But I'm not supporting it. I'm condemning that completely. I condemn such incident, and I believe that it is not in the culture. It is not in the attitude of the people of Akwa Ibom State to take their anger to police facilities and to wale banks, because I know that the central bank governor keeps saying he has released money, that money has been made available to banks, and this statement seems to put the people against the bank. So where is the money then? So I think that the CBN governor is, like I have said before, is the one that is convening these attacks against banks and bank officials. The CBN should note that their action is affecting the lives of bank officials. So whilst this is condemnable, the attack on the bank officials, the attack was to come to the aid of the people of the state by giving out palliative to the vulnerable and then medical attention to the needy. I can tell machine, they don't accept transfer. And even when you transfer, you will have the issue of you are being debited and you don't have this money being paid to the person that you are transferred to. Yesterday, while going around the banks, I think in 3 banks, I met people who spoke that they don't accept, they want cash or transfer. So the person now, you don't have cash, he opted to transfer and he transferred to the filling station. And the money didn't drop and he was debited. He was debited. So he now went to the bank and the bank now told him, fill a form and that in the next 1 month, 30 days, you get your money refunded. So this keep happening. ATM card to purchase items in one of the supermarkets, and he was debited. But the transaction shows decline. but it was debited. And he did it more than twice because he didn't have cash to pay for the items. And in the 3 instances, he was also debited, and none of which form. And then you come and check back in the next 14 days. So this is what keep happening. You keep having these issues of so this is why there is need for the government to, use his good offices of the governor to purchase items, purchase food items, and distribute it to civil servants and those who are already in a precarious situation in the state.
Well, Franklin, you would agree that the COVID-19 pandemic may in some ways have been a dress rehearsal, an unforeseen one, of course, state government, through the COVID-19 enforcement team that was set up at the height of the pandemic. And some would say it was totally flawed because a good number of persons did not have access to these palliatives, whether it was money or food that were distributed. So who's to say that should the state government initiate at the moment, who's to say that it would be a success, or we perhaps will not have the same situation we had during the height of COVID when...
Yes, I remember with a press conference where I asked the governor to disband the committee to use those items to empower the life of their followers and their party men and women. If you like, the PFN, and then at the local government level, you have the... Now all these people got these materials and they simply use it as they saw it as a manner that carry members of their party. And so you could see in a particular instance, I got a report. What was the palliative? Maybe one Indomie, and maybe they cut a tube of they cut it into 3. That was what was shared. So in some areas you could see them sharing the gari in cups. Meanwhile, you had it in that is made up of the society group, the media, and the non-men. The already first thing is that it is our party thing, and they have to empower their party in the stand of crime that the government should give to people who are suffering because of this. The Naira approves such palliative. There should be, and the security agencies. No party person should be part of it. There will be fairness in their distribution because nobody will. The security agencies are involved. But when you bring in party members, it compromise the voters, and they will see it as a means. It could be another way of vote buying. So and other NGOs, you will not see any political party.
Now about the position of the Akwa Ibom State government, and perhaps by this development, we've seen some state governments and citizens in this state is another matter altogether. For instance, 9 gun the suits, but have openly come out to criticize it. The likes of a few governors who haven't joined the suits formally, but have actually had a thing not be said for Akwa Ibom State. It looks like Governor Emmanuel has basically kept that has been made by Akwa Ibom people. Yes, we're not saying the governor is going to bring in money or whether he's kicking against it. And a lot of Akwa Ibomites are not finding it actually funny.
I'm not in the government. I'm not his aide. I'm not a spokesperson. As to why the government is keeping mum, I cannot actually say. He has stood the policy much more than us, much more than us, because that is his own... that I don't know. So he not coming out to speak. He has his reasons. Engaging security agencies in the state, distributed without them holding it. One of our meetings to the bank CEOs outside the state, canvassing that more funds, in their presence, had made several efforts and had been able to reach out to the share of whatever is given to the state from the central bank, and perhaps this is why more monies are sent to the issue.
Okay, on the last line now, the elections are full. The initial stage of this conversation, whether you feel the scarcity of the Naira umpire, INEC, the activities of political parties and their candidates, and the body language February elections. And of course, importantly, what role, what in the course of electioneering? So what are we expecting from Crown as an organization as well?
Be the examiner and come out and score itself. We are going to appraise seminar where we will be able to interface with all stakeholders And then where we also put us way for us to go is to have a free, fair, and credible pre and post-election violence in Akwa Ibom State, where lives have been. We have always urged politicians to exchange. They should engage the voters and tell the voters why they want to be there. You could also record that the Crown had met with the DSS, will be neutral, and the police in Akwa Ibom State has assured the Crown that, believing that the police in Akwa Ibom State will exhibit unqualified neutrality. Is the examiner, so we will score INEC at the end of the day. And so now, on what we expect from the election, we expect a new Nigeria, principle of rule of law, a country that is governed by those who understand the nitty-gritty of governance, for good, not change for bad, by those who will lead Nigeria to. They have never seen a country where where you will buy your own currency with your own money, and this has never happened before. You have to buy like I think 3 days ago. Somebody, my wife, she couldn't buy it. She left. Another person said you now have people who now begin to of Nigeria or any country for that matter, but it's happening back to your house, or you got to use this. Either you get someone to buy all the parties to campaign can't expect that the voters will go out there, and I know who I will not vote for. I can never vote for, because I expect to run a government. That cabal will run the government again. Smooth takeoff of governance. That is what I believe. Not a government that will cause the voices that are too loud criticizing the government. You attack Facebook, attack Twitter. You try to shut down where people can have understand that governance is a collective duty of everyone. But engage us in a town hall meeting, engage us in several fora, and gather that government is already a failure. That is what we are having in this era. We did not carry along the views of the stakeholders. Even when the government had a meeting with the Council of State, you still went against their advices. What then do you want? You are using your own idea, unacceptable to democracy. So that is what I think. That election and I can tell you that Nigerians are going out there to vote with or without fuel in your hand. Because if we don't do it, if we mortgage
there. Thank you so very much, Franklin Isong, State Coordinator, Center for Human Rights. Well, that's the size up of show this morning. Many thanks indeed for joining us. The count hopes to elect a new president and representatives at the National Assembly. With us, I'm Raymond Ita. Enjoy the rest of the day's broadcast, and bye for now.